Welcome to an episode of InRange. I haven't done a digital rights episode in a long time, but if there's a time to do one again, it's absolutely right now, with some real final thoughts at the end of this video, which I think are going to be very important and pertinent going forward. But while I still do some InfoSec work, I haven't been as active in it for quite a while because of InRange. I have a multiple decade career in information security and working with what was at that time what we considered big data sets. And I'm going to start this off with one basic principle that I think is a law of physics when it comes to data, something that's immutable and will always be the case. Large data sets will always, not sometimes, always be abused, and never in your favor. Whether it's the people who technically own the data or someone who gains access to it through a compromise or security breach, the larger the data set, the juicier the target, and the more they can do with it. And that's what brings me to this. Everything the media has been telling you about Doge and supposedly dealing with government overspending in those projects, in my opinion, have been masking the real reality of what that project was and is about. If you look at the news, you'll see there were multiple confrontations, if not more, still ongoing, in which Doge representatives went to different parts of the government and literally broke into the digital infrastructure and back-end databases of all of them, plugging in giant black boxes, slurping down unknown amounts of your information, whether it is IRS, data as well, is all being aggregated in what is ostensibly the world's largest now data aggregator of all time, Palantir. Palantir is named after Palantiri, I believe it is pronounced. I'm not an expert at Lord of the Rings languages, but it's about these stones that are able to connect information and make essentially an all-seeing vision into everything going on. And Palantir is broken up into 3 or more separate projects, one of them most concerningly codenamed Gotham. Can't make this stuff up, can you? Gotham. And this is where they're aggregating everything they're finding and bringing together from multiple data sources to a AI-driven system to draw connections that otherwise, at least in their mind, could not have been drawn otherwise. And this data is and will be abused. It is also my belief that the current efforts ongoing right now, which ostensibly are being covered under the idea of dealing with, quote, illegal immigration, are just a test bed for what is to come if something doesn't change. And if that something doesn't change, these data sets are going to be very useful to authoritarian types to uncover whoever or whatever they don't want. Now, it's funny when we use the word un-American because America has never really lived up to its aspirations, but I still think we should try. And one of those aspirations is the ability to have free thought, free speech, and even freedom of association. These are not criminal acts. However, they will be considered as such, if not worse, defined on however they define those acts. And Doge going around supposedly working on government efficiency, which if you look at the data, they have not achieved whatsoever. The reality of government efficiency would have been to deal with corporations directly, not government social nets. We know this. This is a fact. It's obvious. The large percentage that hold all the revenue and the money and the power are the ones that are sucking us dry, not the individual using a food stamp to buy a burrito. But that's all obvious, I think, to anyone that cares enough to pay attention. But that was the excuse to go into these agencies insert these boxes, and gather the data. I've seen this before. I worked at two different large tier 1 internet providers on the backbone. And in the early days, there were boxes being built to do similar of the data flows going through the network. It is interesting to note that protections over your information and data aren't relevant when your data is rerouted transparently through a foreign country, and then the data is slurped there. But these giant boxes being plugged into these locations and resources, against the willingness of even the employees of these agencies, gathering all this data to feed it to a private company named after a very disturbing thing from a fantasy novel series, to create an all-seeing vision into each individual person. We're not talking just your government records here. This is going to aggregate everything. What you've bought on Amazon, what you've used a credit card for, your digital breadcrumbs that you've provided now. And unless you've been living in the woods off-grid, you've got a digital breadcrumb and a digital fingerprint of all your life and activities. This data is aggregated, and they know probably more about you than you know about you. There was even a point in time where one of these companies started sending products to companies before they ordered the product with a disturbingly high accuracy rate, because they had such an idea about who and what their customers were and were about. So think about everything you've said, everything you've posted, every transaction you've made, probably your GPS data, probably your facial data, probably more, all in the hands of a giant, at best amoral corporation in collusion with an increasingly authoritarian government. Where does that end? That, to me, from a perspective of someone that worked in that space, is exactly what this has always been about. And it's too late. You're not recovering that. You'll never be able to recover that. You'll never get off that list. And this is what I'm coming to in this regard. If you are sitting here watching this video worried about maybe someday being on a list because you're a person that, for whatever reason, pick one, a government or corporation or both together in collusion, would find unacceptable. Well, you're already on it. You're on the list. There's no changing that. What you say and do now will not add you to the list. It'll just reinforce what they already think and know about you, even if they're wrong. So this is where we're in a peculiar situation in a world that was built on surveillance capitalism, and no doubt that's what all of these social media platforms have become, if not were already from the beginning. You know how the government's all worried about TikTok? Well, TikTok's just doing what Facebook and Twitter and all these others have been doing for now decades, along with every other thing in your surveillance pocket device. In another act of obvious hypocrisy. But that's all been happening for a long time, and all of us, even those of us that don't think we played into it, have. There's ghost accounts, shadow accounts. If you didn't have a Facebook account, they had one for you. We know this. They made ones for people that didn't exist so they could have a place to aggregate data. And all of this other government data being aggregated is now in the hands of a system that can use AI, with all the accuracy that we know that that comes with, to make a picture and image of who you and what you are. And if you are not part of them, you're against them. It's just how it works. So what that means is, at this point in time, there is no hiding. It's over. It was over a while ago, but the stinking stench of that corpse is now prevalent in the air. The miasma is real, and if you don't smell it, you're not paying attention. So what that means to me is the answer now is not hiding. I'm not telling you to do something illegal here. That's not my point of my message. What I'm saying is, it's just time to speak up more, not less. Be louder, not quiet. It's actually not only in service of you, it's in service of what is moral, just like it has been in the firearms community to speak out against the bigotry and rife racism and hatred that existed in the traditional 2A spaces. It is also time to speak out on all these other topics, because at a minimum, you're doing the right thing, but it might just save you in the long run. If not you, maybe someone else, maybe even the future of what we believe in are American aspirations of freedom and liberty, even if we've never truly lived up to them. This is a rather short video, but go ahead and just do the thing. Do your research. The reality is it's obvious what's going on if you're paying attention. And I will tell you that this sort of data aggregation is never for the public good. It's never for your personal good. You are on it whether you want to be or not, and you cannot escape it. So push through. Every moment you let fear of that guide your actions, meaning make you more quiet, you're giving them space. This is like the light of the media being shined upon or shown upon actions. The camera has been such an important weapon against authoritarianism, as has the pen and the media in general. But now in the world where that has been quote unquote democratized, guess what? You're that too. You're that light. So shine it bright, step forward, understand that you're not safe regardless, and that you're on the list already. It's not a fun message, but it's the real one. If you want to support this project and this alternative voice we bring to this space, patreon.com/InRange TV. Every dollar counts. It's only you, the viewer, that makes it possible for us to do this work and say things like this in a space that no one seems to be willing to say, but really they're mostly just aligned with. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.